Hi, this is BobKing. This is my submission for Part 2 of Module 4's Revise and Play the Learning Game. Part 2 is Playing the Game. So the agenda for my video here will be, first we'll talk about the course objectives for my course. My course is titled Zen and the Art of Not Being There, or Mastering Remote Meetings. Then we'll talk about the game objectives, the objectives of the game that I've inserted into my course. We'll explain the game. Then we'll talk about my philosophy, which is basically that everybody wins when they play the game, and then I'll demonstrate the game itself. So the course objectives. So the overall course is all about knowing the tools that we use to do telecommunication for presentations. So I work for a company called VMware. The VM stands for Virtual Machine. We kind of invented the whole process for doing virtual computers, and our whole business revolves around remote administration of environments, remote communication, remote desktops. Remote is our thing. And so we do a lot of remote presentations for our customers, and we use a lot of different tools. We don't have a corporate standard. We use Teams, we use Skype, we use Zoom, I mean, you name it. And our customers use a wide gamut. So we don't have a standard, but we do mostly use Zoom. So that's what I'm going to use as my example within the class, and that's what I'm going to kind of concentrate on. So the tool I'm going to use for my examples is Zoom. So I want to kind of stress that, but all of the stuff that I talk about, you can kind of correlate to other tools. So if you're a Teams person, you can do the stuff in Teams. Just the examples won't be for your specific interface. The other objective is to know the environment. So there are a lot of different types of things that you do with these telecommunication presentation software packages. For VMware, we kind of define three different kinds of sessions. Internal meetings, which are we call informal. Customer-facing engagements, which are much more formal, and then webinars. The big difference with webinars is really the biggest difference is that in a webinar, it's kind of designed so that the presenter or presenters are the only ones that share their content. And then I'm also going to talk about some of the best practices. So for those three types of meetings, there are certain session configuration options that you would put in place. Who shares content, who's muted, who can chat amongst themselves. Those kind of best practices which will give you the best results overall. The game that I put in place has certain objectives as well. I mean, any game that you put into a class, the objective should be to reinforce the learning objectives for the class itself. For me, the objective we just talked about, right, is to master the interface, right, and then master the process of presenting remotely. This game covers that first objective, mastering the interface, mastering the tool itself, learning the Zoom configuration options. What you want to be able to do is find and use those options, and you want to be able to do that under pressure. You think about it, when you're doing a live presentation and you're hosting that and you need to mute someone because they've got background noise, or you need to turn off the chat because it's just becoming a distraction, you need to not only do that quickly, you need to do that while you're continuing with the presentation. There's a lot of pressure to that. So you need to be able to do that under a pressure situation. I can't recreate a live audience in a class, but I can put some pressure on you by making it a competition. So we give a real life scenario, or recreate a real life a pressure situation throughout the game. Another thing I should probably talk about is we're going to practice this. Matter of fact, we do most of the exercises within my course collaboratively. So within VMware, we have a social software package. We call it VMware Social. It's kind of like an internal Facebook environment. So my students, all VMware employees during their onboarding process are introduced to VMware Social. They're taught how to use it. So as my students join this class, they'll be instructed to join a particular group within VMware Social named after my class, Zen and the Art of Not Being There. Within that that group, they will be told to find a subgroup or create a subgroup, 3 to 5 individuals that will become their Zoom buddies, is what I'm calling them. Those are the people that they will interact with collaboratively throughout the class. So when we have an exercise, they will create Zoom sessions and practice the things that we talk about within the class. So for the game, they actually will compete against their peers within the game in a live situation. Again, recreating real-world scenarios so that things look and feel real life during the course and during this particular game. So the game's pretty straightforward. Let me just explain how it works. So the students are going to open a Zoom session as a group with their Zoom buddies. Everyone will open the section titled Zoom Interface Challenge. Whoever hosts the session, everyone's going to set up their screen so that they have the class on one side of the screen or on one monitor, and their Zoom session right on another section of their screen or on another monitor, so that they can see both at the same time. Whoever hosted the screen will make sure everybody's on the same interface, everything's set up correctly, and then they will tell everybody to click on continue when everybody's ready to go. When they click on continue, a flashcard will appear. That's part of the Rise 360 interface. And I found a GIF that actually has a countdown. It's 3, 2, 1, go. When it hits go, everyone will click on the flashcard. It will turn over, and on the back side is a Zoom configuration option. Their job is to find that option within the menu system of Zoom. As soon as they find it, everybody's going to scramble. They'll go looking for it. As soon as they find it, they share their screen. The first person to share their screen wins that round and scores a point. Now that sounds like that would be the end of it, but it's not. Right? That's the first piece. It's kind of a behaviorist learning environment, finding the menu option. At that point, they've shared their screen. Everybody's looking at, hey, I won. Then they start a group discussion. They discuss the menu option, where it is, make sure that everybody knows how to find it. Then each person should suggest when it might be appropriate to use that option within an internal meeting, if it's appropriate, a client-facing meeting, if it's appropriate, and a webinar, if it's appropriate, which allows them then to take that option and bring it into their own work environment. When would I use this when I was doing a presentation? Once that discussion is ended, whoever's hosting the session would determine we've come to an end, click on continue, and start the process on the next flashcard within that grouping. I'm going to do this particular exercise, the game, 2 or 3, probably 3 times throughout the class, and the score will be cumulative. Whoever scores the most points throughout the class will be declared the winner of the Zoom Interface Challenge. We'll talk about winning and losing here. Everybody wins. The goal of the game, really, if you think about it, is twofold, right? It's to ensure that the learners are familiar with the Zoom menu system. But it's also to recreate the pressure of finding a configuration option while you're hosting a session. Now, we can't recreate a live simulation, right, a live audience within the simulation. But the competition of the game should create a real-world feel, right? That pressure of I've got to be first. I'm in competition. That will give you a feel, right? For how do I do this while I have people watching me, right? I have to talk a little bit while I'm still clicking and trying to figure out how do I mute someone, or how do I turn off the chat, or how do I respond to a chat, whatever the option might be. Those, if while you're mastering that, it's a win-win. Everybody wins by experiencing that. So even if you don't win the round, right, you've experienced a little bit of that pressure, and that takes the edge off when you're doing it live. Even if you don't, win the round, you get those benefits, and you also have a win situation by participating in that reflective period after the round, right? It makes you stop and think about, I muted somebody. I found out how to mute somebody. When would I use that? Right? That builds that schema, those connections between the menu, right, that you just found, and the real-world scenarios as to when you would use it. You're building cognitive connections, which helps for retention of information, and also helps for the retrieval of that information later in your real-life job. The course itself, we're going to include 3 of these Zoom interface challenges. As I mentioned earlier, it'll be spread throughout the module. That keeps bringing the students back to that content, reminds them that that knowing the interface is important. The score itself will be cumulative throughout the class. As I said, the person with the highest score at the end will be declared the winner. But I've actually worked with our marketing department. Everybody gets some sort of parting gift, a T-shirt or something like that, so that they have that sense of accomplishment, right? We've mastered the interface. Here's my prize for doing so. So now I'm going to demonstrate the game. I do want to remind you that the game is actually designed for 3 to 5 people, each of them joining into a session. I'm going to be doing this by myself, so I've opened a Zoom session. I've joined it from another computer, so I'm the participant. Either way, I guess I win. It's either me or my evil twin will win, but just keep that in mind. You'll notice, I'll bring that over here. This is my Zoom session. I am both people. So the bottom one is me. I guess the top is my evil twin. He lives apparently in San Francisco. Let me bring in the game to the session. So, here's my class, Zen and the Art of Not Being There. So this is how the students would set this up in their environment, either with 2 monitors or on a single monitor, as I've got it set up here, so that they could see their Zoom session on one side and the class itself on another. I'm going to start the course here. We would be in the course. We would continue, right? And over here on this side, we would go to the Zoom interface challenge. This is the first one. Whoever was hosting the session would say, hey, we're in the Zoom interface challenge. We've all read the directions. All right, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to click on continue. It's going to open up a flashcard. It's going to have a GIF on the front that's going to count down 3, 2, 1. When it comes to go, click on it. It's going to flip over. There's going to be a menu item, and we have to find that. The first person to find that menu item within the Zoom interface, that person should share their screen. That's the winner of the round. They get a point. All right, now I don't want to do the first one because I want to do the second one because I've got something else I want to show, kind of talk about how the discussion would work. So the first one would do this, 3, 2, 1, and go. And then they would click on it, and when they would go and find this one, and then when they were done, they would have a discussion, right? And then the host would say, "Okay, we're done talking about this. Let's do the next one. 3, 2, 1, 0, go." They would click on it, and then everyone would do this. They'd start scrambling. Okay, I got to find how to mirror my video. So they would come over to their Zoom session and go, where video? That's probably under video. So let me look here. View settings. That's probably under settings, and under the pressure, they might not even see this thing that says mirror my video. So they go, it's not share screen. No, that's not rats. Okay, well maybe it's over here. I'm gonna type Zoom and bring up. I remember that there's this Zoom app thing that has this little gear thing that has settings. Maybe there's a settings here. Oh, it brings up the same screen. It's got to be here. There it is. Zoom, mirror my video. Okay, so I found it. So now I want to come over here and share my screen. And if I'm first sharing my screen, there we go. Oh, I went. All right, and I shared my screen, and everybody stops. I just won this round. I scored a point. Now, in a traditional game, that would be the end. I score a point. We go to the next flashcard. But in this game, this is our moment of reflection. We stop and we have a discussion. So first thing, I want everybody to know where I found this menu item. So I would say, hey, I missed it on the first place. It's really easy. Right off the bottom, you go to video, and it's right there on the first screen. But I actually brought up this thing, and I went to the gear, and it's in the same spot, but it says mirror my video. But let's talk about what that does, right? So if I don't have my video mirrored, when I raise my right hand, notice it's on the left side of my screen. So this is my right hand, if you think, and if I wanted to point to something on the screen, if I had a slide behind me, this becomes really kind of inconvenient. So I think about the weather guy on the news, when they have to practice a lot to figure out how do I point to the left when everything's backwards. But the nice thing is, if I have something with text on it, the text is readable, right? But if I mirror my video, now this is my right hand, if you think about it, and if I point to the right, It is on the right. Now, I have a cool piece of software installed here called MMHMM, if you're interested in giving it a try. But it allows me to do stuff like this where I can move myself around. So if I had a slide in the background, I could put myself next to something. I could say, look at these numbers here, or look at this graphic here. And I could move myself over here and say, oh, I want you to look at, really pay attention to this, or look at these numbers going down here. And notice my right hand is pointing to the right. It's very easy for me to keep track of that. So mirroring the video can make it very easy to point to things on screen and not have it backwards in your head, which becomes really confusing. I don't know if you've ever been in a Zoom meeting where somebody points and then they go, oh no, it's this way, right? It's not as professional looking as it could be. It's not like the news guy, the weather guy that knows exactly where Topeka is on the map, right? The only problem with mirroring the video is that your text is backwards. Right, so I actually did some work. I was teaching for a place called Stormwind out of Arizona. We had a deal with we were using their studios, and they actually had embroidered shirts where everything was embroidered backwards, so that they could mirror the video, and the text would be backwards on the shirt, so it was right ways in the video. So those are the kind of discussions and demonstrations that I want the students to have, and I'll have a demo of this particular discussion actually in my class, so that they can see how I want them to approach the reflective period after each of the slides. All right, so that was kind of a demo of how the game works within the class. That's it. It's a fairly straightforward process. I didn't use any outside source to create it. It's all really basically using the tool I'm trying to teach, which gives them practical experience using that tool, and the basic tools that are built into Rise 360, so I didn't have to go outside. And it also means that the class is self-sufficient, right? They don't have to have anything other than the tools necessary for the class, Zoom or Skype or Teams, and the class itself. They don't have to have access to anything else outside of that to run through the class and to make things work. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.